So do I need a microphone or anything or just?
Yeah.
Nope. That's a little outlook.
That's all.
Okay.
All right, our next speaker is Dan Brown from CySER, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I don't know what else to say. I'll let you introduce yourself the rest of the way.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. So, let's see here. Dan Brown, I've been with CySER almost a year and a half. Prior to that, I was in higher ed for about 18 years. I spent 17 years here on campus at WSU. I have an MBA from right here. Spent plenty of time at classes here in Todd. Season ticket football and basketball holder for the Pac-2. Go Cougs. Don't know what next year will look like, but anyway. Primarily worked supporting housing dining. I worked for ASUS and did system security work there, managed firewalls, PCI networks, healthcare, HIPAA networks, that type of thing. So now I work for CySER, and I will get the right slide deck. I just wanted to show that was left over from the other slide deck, and I cut it. But we'll get slideshow from the beginning. So let's see here. So we're 1 month. Okay. Spring 24. We're going to talk about what is CySER, some of our initiatives we have, the state of cybersecurity right now, Bolt Typhoon and state-sponsored actors, and then some resource examples of things that we have and that we do, and then a career slide and contact info for myself and our protective security advisor that's also based out of Spokane. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put your hand up, and if I'm in a breaking point, I'll just stop and try and answer. So first, let me ask, so in the program, how many are in your last year? Are you seniors? Okay, so roughly half. And juniors? So then another, and then the rest are sophomore, couple freshmen. I would find it interesting to see just the perspectives from the freshman to the senior year on technology, because I'm sure it's a bit different. Everything changes so fast that they're probably seeing things in a different way than the seniors might. Definitely than I probably would. Okay, what is CySER? So we are Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. We were formed in 2018 under the Department of Homeland Security. We work with partners to defend against today's threats and collaborate with industry to build a more secure and resilient critical infrastructure for the future. We coordinate security and resilience efforts through trusted partnerships across public and private sectors. And we are aligned with the FEMA regions. So we're Region 10, which is Idaho, Oregon, Alaska, and Washington. And within that region, we have cybersecurity advisors for 5 for Washington, 2 for Idaho, 2 for Oregon, and 2 for Alaska. So there's a bunch of us, and we try and stay in our geographic areas, but we'll support others. I'm going to Alaska in a couple weeks to help out there. Looking forward to it. So again, we are Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. Our vision is a secure and resilient critical infrastructure for the American people, and our mission is to lead the effort to understand and manage cyber and physical risks to that critical infrastructure. So as part of that, one of our collaborations is the JCDC, cool name, cool logo. Basically, we work with public and private partnerships, including, you can see them on there, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, FireEye, Microsoft, Google, AWS, AT&T, Verizon, Lumen, FBI, NSA, all the federal partners as well. And they have security analysts And if they see something, you know, on the dark web, or they see a vulnerability and it's for one of the stakeholders in the critical infrastructure, they will let us know. We'll reach out to that stakeholder and we'll say, hey, by the way, you really should look at this workstation. It's infected with bootloader malware or whatever it might be. Or if we see accounts for sale, or they do, then they let us know and we'll work on that. 16 critical infrastructures. So I started circling the ones that were applicable to WSU, and it was pretty much just about all of them in some way, shape, or form. So the common ones we work with, government facilities includes higher education, K through 12, city and county government, state, local, tribal, and territorial. So right now, our focus areas are elections infrastructure. So we're going around to every county in the state, making sure that their systems are secure and they're not susceptible to, you know, foreign adversaries trying to affect them. The other sectors that are priority are healthcare, K through 12 education, and water and wastewater. So I took this slide from the WSU research site, and basically it breaks out research into 5 areas. And as an example, like the agriculture, food, nutrition, that aligns with our food and ag sector. Health and well-being is healthcare and public health. Energy, environments, energy, water, food and ag sectors. Next generation materials technologies is critical manufacturing, nuclear, defense, industrial base. And that's just an example of how we align with trying to protect those. And it also emphasizes the importance of your research data. And that's another potential target for folks to try and get. So initiatives. We have a few baseline initiatives that are going right now. One of them is software bill of materials. So how many of you folks are coders? Do you have to take what programming class do you have to take as part of this program?
There's a lot of them. There's some general, programming courses. It culminates with, I think, called it computer science, software engineers have to 2-semester long capstone course.
Okay. 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 So what do we use for development then? What programming languages? I mean, are we Python scripters? What do we do?
There's some C++, I'm sure there's Python people out there, C# maybe?
Okay.
C# people.
I took the shorter path and was an MIS major, so I didn't have to do quite as many development classes. But I did take Fortran. Yes, it was much less forgiving than some of the languages that are available today.
What version?
Oh, you're really Unix System 5, I remember. Yeah, Fortran 4 sounds. Anyway, yes, but we've moved on from there. But, in that same vein, there's still a ton of financial applications that are written in COBOL, and, people are supporting those to this day. So some of that stuff just kind of refuses to die. Okay, software bill of materials. The intent is that when you purchase a commercial software application, you will know exactly what's in it, what code bases are in it, what versions. It will actually, have supplier, component, version, identifiers, the dependencies, the author of the SBOM, the person that wrote this inventory. And think of things, I always bring up Log4j. That's the most recent, large scale one. And with Log4j, many people didn't know they had it embedded in their systems. And because of that, they were vulnerable and many were affected. And with a software bill of materials, that would have helped to to address that. So. Do we have any questions about software building materials? It's pretty exciting stuff. Another initiative is our secure by design, secure by default. And basically the idea is that all security features, well, you start with a secure code base and then all security features are built in and they don't charge extra. The example I often give is, okay, if you want multi-factor authentication, it shouldn't cost you an additional $5,000 of the over the base licensing. That should be included with your purchase. I mean, you just need to build it in. So the base needs to be secure by design and default. So that is the intent. There's a nice low-res picture of our director, Jen Easterly, talking to Carnegie Mellon about exactly that. Another one that's, so how many of you folks are familiar with CVEs? Okay. Okay. Well, CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exploits, there's a ton of them. I was trying to find a number, and as of February 23, it said 196,000. And for 2024, they estimate it to be around 35,000, almost 2,900 a month. So the idea is a CVE is something that is a potential vulnerability, but it hasn't been acted upon. Now, a KEV, or a known exploited vulnerability, has been verified by CySER and documented. The phrasing they use is meticulously cataloged. And as of 5/16/24, there are only 1,110 of those. And there have been 176 additions in the last year. So my point with this is, as you're reviewing security, I'd start with the KEVs. Less than 2% of the CVEs are actually exploited. So start with a smaller list, make sure you're covered on all those, and then, obviously look at the CVEs that are relevant to your environment. Like most recently, the Palo Alto ones, there were some 0-day ones that were, had large potential for exploitation, and that needed to be addressed. But just try and make your job as easy as you can as a security professional. So yes, sir.
What are maybe the top 1 or 2 KEVs in terms of number of times they've been exploited, most active?
I don't, but again, as of recent, the PA stuff, the Palo Alto has been pretty significant. We've had different ones on fuel systems. Believe it or not, there's Franklin Fueling Systems was exploited, and you could take over a fuel system monitor, which seems like, does that really matter? Well, it could matter if that fuel tank is connected to a generator that you're counting on it running, and you think that the tank is entirely full and it's not. Then you could, if an event and natural disaster happened, you wouldn't have any power, which would be bad. So, things like that's one. But I don't know the top one. That's a good question though. To look that up. Yeah, that's a good point. So now we'll talk about the state of cyber. So this is just a general slide from the FBI's ic3.gov website. That's the Internet Crime Complaint Center. If you have an incident and you've been hacked and it's criminal, which they usually are, that's where you would file a report. You would file a report there, they would start an investigation. If you contacted us, we would assist wherever we could, and we could contact federal partners and the MSISAC, which is an organization that's also does recovery. They're multi-state information sharing and assistance center. that stands for. And every sector has an information systems and assistant, information sharing and assist. An ISAC for energy, for cars, for all kinds of different industry groups and sectors. And some of them are free to join, others are not. I think the financial one is, I don't know, in the $10,000 to $30,000 a year range to join. MS ISAC is free. I think it's because we fund them, but I'm not sure. But yeah. Numbers, big numbers compared to 2018. We went from, 351,000 complaints and losses of 2.7 billion to currently 3.26 million complaints and 27 billion loss. That was for 23. So it is growing. Let's see here. Washington State was ranked 10th in terms of victims in the US. 870 times the ransomware victims now as there were in 2018. Healthcare, critical manufacturing, and government facilities. Yes, sir.
Do you also partner with state agencies when these complaints come in?
Yes. So it's interesting. A lot of folks are getting into cyber. So the Washington State Department of Emergency Management has spun up a cyber group that assists. And I think their focus may end up being more on the emergency management side, but they're kind of trying to offer a lot of things. There are some state agencies. Secretary of State has some resources that are specific to their area. But yeah, we do. If there's an issue, an event, we'll talk to Washington State. I know the WATEC CISO. We've talked to him on different events, and because with the K-20 network, and the intergovernmental network, it's all kind of connected. You're sort of on the same network as the schools, Pullman School District. Not directly, but I imagine there's ACLs that keep one from the other. But it's all the same backbone. Does that sort of answer?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a top 10 list you want to be on.
Why is that? What is it about Washington?
I would say we have a pretty good footprint in tech, right? I mean, between Amazon and Microsoft, and if you go, over the mountains, there's a lot of tech there. And I think we're a fairly well connected state. So, and I find it interesting. So I live, in Rosalia, population 600, I can get 10 gig fiber at my house. My son-in-law in Spokane can't get that. But I think it's, there's initiatives to fund rural internet service. So that's why they're putting fiber in some of the rural areas. But it is nice. I'm not 10, I'm only 2 gig. And I don't really need it. They did it because I could. I told my wife I needed it.
Is that a reason because of the infrastructure bill?
I believe so. I mean, it has to be, because I've even, we go visit up in North Idaho at Priest Lake, and they're running fiber up Highway 57. I'm like, for the 50 people that live up here, I mean, it's good. Everybody needs it. But there is quite a significant investment in infrastructure. So, and I'm sure it has to do with that. And a lot of times the ports are involved with that. And I know I've worked with the Port of Whitman in the past on fiber. Okay, let's see if we're okay. And these are a couple slides. This one and the next one that just give an idea of the ransomware payment rates. This I found from a Coveware site. So I wouldn't say that it's 100% validated and accurate, but it does show the trend. So in Q1 of 2024, only 28% of folks were paying, which if you go back to Q1 of 2019, 85% of folks were paying. So the trend is not to pay. And I think some of that is because many people are better prepared. They have immutable backups. And they're able to recover. I talked to someone in Yakima last week. They got hit and they had a backup device and also tertiary backups to the cloud. And they were able to basically, their AD got owned, so they were able to shut it down, build greenfield on a segmented network and recover from their backups. And they were in pretty good shape and they did not pay. But the second side is the double ransomware. So even if you don't pay, there's the threat that they're going to release your data for sale on the dark web. So if it's PII or any kind of sensitive data about your customers, that's another consideration that you have to consider. But yeah, you have to think about it. Okay, so there's that. The next slide talks about the change in the stats for payment amounts. So there's a drop in the average and a rise in the median ransom payments, which indicates a decrease in high figure payments and an increase in moderate amounts. So I think they're just trying to make ransomware affordable for everyone. So actually, I think they just want everyone to pay a little bit. If they can afford, a small amount, then that's what they'll try and get. Yeah.
Why the drop, the average ransomware?
Well, from what I had read, the indicators showed that one of the food processing companies paid an $11.9 million ransomware, right? And so there's been a few large ones, but now they're just kind of trying. It's like the average is going down, and I mean there's the other the casinos in Las Vegas. One paid, one did not. Who ended up better off? I don't know. I mean, it depends who you ask. It's a business decision. We're always going to say don't pay. Anybody in law enforcement or federal government is going to say don't pay. I mean, but some do. If their business is crippled, then they have to. And this is a slide I put up last time, just talking about different tools used by adversaries, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with all of those. You're probably Kali Linux gurus and use that every day. How many people use Kali Linux? Okay. How many people like Kali Linux? Same people. Yeah, but anyway, it's worthwhile sometimes to use these tools and look at your own internal network, and through the eyes of what the bad actors would be doing, see what you can find that is vulnerable. So, and then Shodan. How many folks have used Shodan? It's pretty cool. You should play with it, the rest of you. You can get, if you have a .edu account, you can get a free membership upgrade. And I think you can even change your email address after you sign up. So if you sign up now while you're a student, you could, get a membership that would last you for a little while. But so with that, you can search for vulnerabilities specifically. You can put a CVE number in and you can search for everyone in the world that has that vulnerability, everyone in the US. You can drill down to Washington State. You can drill down to Pullman and find anyone that has that. I think my example here, I just was looking for Nginx, and this is from, I don't know, 6 months ago. And I did the same search last night and it was down to 78. But you know, you can pick these, and then if you click on one, sometimes they will have vulnerabilities. You click on the IP address, and then it will show you any CVEs that are associated. The other thing that's useful is you can look and see, okay, this particular one is TLS 1.2, so they're better off, but you can go through and see ones that are TLS 1.1, which is vulnerable. You can find, I've opened 3389 ports. I found a library in Spokane that had remote desktop open to the world for a 2012 server. And I probably will reach out to them and say, you shouldn't do this. But one, it's 2012, and two, shouldn't be open without a VPN. So that is Shodan. Pretty easy to use, but you know, especially once you learn the syntax, but it's not that difficult. Other scary things I looked at industrial control systems. You can find water and wastewater systems that are open on the web. I found, you know, the control panel for a wastewater system in Moldova. I don't know, but I didn't click anything, but it was there and viewable and unauthenticated, which is bad. Okay. Pause for a minute for sip of coffee and questions. Any?
Come back to your list of the 16 critical infrastructures.
Yes.
Which of those do you work with most frequently on a day-to-day basis? Which ones seem the most active?
Well, again, I mentioned the priority sectors, healthcare, but that's I won't say difficult. It's a little more challenging to get into that sector because many of the organizations are private, right? And so the other thing about CySER is we're purely voluntary. We're no cost, we're federally funded. As long as everyone pays their taxes, I get paid. We're not regulatory, no non-compliance. So if someone doesn't want our services, they don't have to have it. And that's okay. I like to help them, but there's plenty of folks. So, a lot of K through 12. I just ran a conference, in Spokane at ESD 101. We had, I don't know, 140 people, administrators from schools. Again, we're trying to talk to all the counties regarding the election infrastructure, because the auditors run the elections, but you know, the IT directors run the technology behind that. So we're trying to do that. You know, and I live my life on the road going to conferences too. I've got a stack of lanyards anyway. So we'll go to a water, I go to Aquifer board meetings, I go to local emergency planning committee meetings. Every county has one, and that includes the emergency managers, police, fire, sometimes school districts. They'll talk about what would happen in an event and how you would partner with the different agencies. Anyway. Who else? And it's just a lot of government and a little bit of private, we've talked to, just briefly talked to folks like Avista, but they have a huge security team already, right? I mean, so where we can offer the most benefit, I think, is for the smaller groups. If like some of these counties have 1, 2, 3 IT people for their whole county infrastructure. And they're just excited to have somebody come on site and talk tech and offer advice and do assessments. Is that sort of answer?
Yeah.
Okay, one more sip. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something called Volt Typhoon. So there was an advisory that came out on the US side. It was CISA, the FBI, NSA, Department of Justice, Department of Energy, EPA, and TSA. And internationally, it was Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and UK. So we came out with this joint advisory talking about how PRC sponsored cyber action, and it's called Bolt Typhoon. They're targeting networks of communication, energy, transportation, water, and wastewater. And what they're trying to do is prepare for being in as many systems they can and disrupting those infrastructure systems. So say in 2027, they decided to invade Taiwan. Then at that point in time, they would likely take all these systems they've already infiltrated and been in for years, and they would do a tripwire, and they would try and affect as much chaos as they could. If they could affect drinking water, if they could affect energy, all of those things. So that's their intent. And what they're doing is they're using something called living off the land techniques, which involves using built-in tools, PowerShell, scripting, whatever, things that kind of fly under the radar and will allow them to remain dormant on a system without affecting anything and being noticed. So, and there was also another joint guidance from the same group on that about living off the land. So let's see. And then I'll briefly talk about each of the programs, China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. So we'll start with the Chinese. And it's interesting, the incidents are on the right side. I'm not going to read through all this, but the incidents that they've done are on the right side, and then their capabilities and their intent is on the left. And they each have there are similar focuses, but each of the state actors have a little different intent. Like for China, they want to surpass Western industrial defense capabilities. And, they have long-term strategy to gain advantage over the US. So that's China. If we talk about Russia, again, they've done some bad stuff since on that list, 2011 till now. And they're basically trying to undermine us. And think about elections. There's been recent articles in the news talking about them trying to sow discord and mis and disinformation and put things online to affect. Like I saw a deep fake of Ukrainian president telling everyone to lay their arms down. It's like, but that it wasn't real, but it was created by someone to try and affect decisions of others. North Korea, again, bad stuff. Their intent is part of their intent is to generate revenue to support their regime in their nuclear and ballistic missile programs and to counter international sanctions. So, and to show everyone that they can do it. And Iran, yeah, again, a bunch of bad stuff. Was it the president that was just killed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
President and Prime Minister, I think, are both killed.
Yeah, in a helicopter crash. Yeah, that was, and I don't know how that's gonna affect anytime you lose leadership. There is concern, but they're researching industrial control systems, and they're more on the short-term effects side. And they've also been they tried to target the 2020 election, including violence-related themes, social media, whatever can affect. So what do we do? At CySER, I provide on-site assessments and advising. So This afternoon, I'm gonna go to a school district in the area, or actually a city in the area, and I'm gonna talk about their environment. I say, what do you do for backups, networking, firewalls, segmentation, authentication, security awareness training, you use MFA, how do you update your systems, all of the baseline items that they need to do to stay secure. So we'll talk about that. Then I'll do an assessment of where they're at, ask them if they have an asset inventory, an incident response plan, and just go through a checklist and then provide them a report. So that's kind of what I do. So we have, you know, those are assessments. We'll offer tabletop exercises. I've been involved in some where we'll simulate a ransomware event. We'll go on site, we'll get, 30 people in a room and say, okay, everything's encrypted. What do we do? And if it's going well, they pull out their plan and say, okay, step one is this. And if they don't have a plan, then we just kind of try and work through that. And when it's all done, we do an after action report and say, okay, what could we have done better and what do we need to improve? So scanning. So we offer our baseline is cyber hygiene. I believe it's Nessus on the back end. It'll just scan your publicly facing addresses and see if there's any, if you got, open FTP, if you're running a 2008 server, something that is end of life and end of support that may be vulnerable. And then same thing, web application scanning, I'll look for things like cross-site scripting and issues with web applications. Remote penetration test is off-site, but it's a little more in-depth scan of your network. And the RVA, remote vulnerability assessment, we actually come on site and try and hack your stuff from the inside. So it's a little more interesting. That's what I'm supposed to do. I mostly do it all. So that is just an example. I'm a cybersecurity advisor. So that's an example of the kind of things I do. I've explained some of it, but it's basically a lot of working with people to find out what they're doing, ask them why they're doing it that way, and offer suggestions for improvement. Educate. I've done security awareness training for companies and small groups, large groups, and I can coordinate with federal partners. We have direct contacts for FBI, Homeland Security investigations, Secret Service, all those folks. But it's interesting in Eastern Washington. There's not really any cyber folks on the FBI side. They're all based out of Seattle. So if there's a cyber event in Eastern Washington, I'm calling someone in Seattle. Even though we have folks in Spokane, they're not on the cyber side. Okay, so let's see here. Joining CySER, there's a bunch of links there. USAjobs.gov. You can sign up for USAjobs.gov and put in filters based on the location, whether it's remote or not, whether it's hybrid, the job classification. Like I'm a 2210. I don't remember what the exact description is, but it's IT security. So you can search based on that, and there are tens of thousands of jobs out there. In CySER, we have everything from threat hunting to what I do, to people that do vulnerability management. They do some of the scans. They go out on the dark web, look for different things, security analysts, all kinds of jobs. Yeah. So there's that. There's my contact info. I left, Steve Neal is, I didn't mention, so as part of CISA, there's actually 4 foundational areas. I'm a cybersecurity advisor. Steve Neal is based out of Spokane. He's a protective security advisor, and he looks at facilities. So he would take, this building, he would walk around it and say, okay, what are your ingress, egress points? What do you do for door access, keys? Do you have ballistic glass? Do you have cameras? All those kinds of physical security. And are there high-speed avenues of approach? Somebody could drive a car through the front door. Do active shooter training, bomb preparedness, all of that. So there's the physical side. And again, all these are free, federally funded. There's chemical security inspectors that will deal with the chemical side of things. And there's emergency communication coordinators. Those are the folks that talk about radio interoperability, cellular phones, towers, all that kind of stuff, more on the emergency management side. But those are our base areas, and there are jobs in all of them. So I know this stuff's kind of boring, but it's hard to spice it up sometimes. So, questions? Yes, sir.
How close do you work with the Department of Homeland Security CySER technology? Is there an overlap there or?
Not. I don't work with them, but we do have meetings with the headquarters people. And sometimes it involves training, and it is amazing how I'm still finding out some of the things we do. It's like, oh wow, we do that. And it's because it's not part of my area, and we're kind of compartmentalized. I don't know, in Region 10, I want to say, we have 50 employees or something, maybe. I mean, so we're not huge, but then we do some, like for example, the incident in Yakima I had a couple weeks ago. Someone from Homeland Security Investigations in San Diego found this stuff out on the dark web, and he contacted the Homeland Security investigator in Yakima, who then went on site, and he's primarily a drug guy. I mean, he deals with, drug contraband, that kind of thing. So he said, I don't know anything about technology. So he was their first introduction about this event. And then I went the next day and said, I can talk tech. But that's, another example about how we don't have the cyber assets in East Washington. So I have seen some documents that suggested that maybe any city over 200,000 should have their own cybersecurity advisor, which is what I do. So I don't know if that'll happen or get funded, but yeah, that's the other reason I think that like emergency management and other people are trying to get into cyber is it's popular and it's more likely to get funded than some other things, right? Yes, sir.
If you wanted to learn this,
I was working here. Well, I'd always wanted to get an MBA. I looked at Gonzaga, I looked at Seattle Pacific, and it just, married and had kids. And when I started working here, the tuition waiver program was my friend. So $5 a semester, up to 5 credits, 6 credits, anyway. But at the time, they allowed you to do a part-time anymore. They've I know the MBA, I think they've changed it to more of a cohort program. So they'd like everyone to start and finish in the same, I think it's that way. And I can understand the value of that. But yeah, that's just, I wanted to do it for personal fulfillment. And I do think, like getting a degree shows a sense of being able to do something hard, stick with it until completion, right? And that's, whether it's undergrad or graduate. And if it's graduate, it's that
just that next level. And I think that especially as I got further in my career, it helped me more. It's, you know, they said, okay, he has his undergrad and he has his MBA. And with the MBA, while it wasn't technology focused, it helped me, be able to better communicate. And, you know, talk to business side, because that's what's also important. Better. Yes, ma'am.
What are your observations or experiences related to hospitality and tourism? What are the claims or what are the problems you observed during your career in Washington or in your district, let's say? Or is it very often that you hear?
You know, we had one hotel in Seattle that was affected, but that, I didn't take care of it. I do think about it, I travel a lot. I think that I would like to talk to some of those folks about improving their systems, because, you know, I look at some of the door access systems and I'm concerned, you know, at one point you could go online and, you know, with a ballpoint pen or whatever tools you could find, you were able to bypass some of the doors and do different things. So I have concern. I would say a larger concern would be the data, because where, you know, when I provide my name, address, credit card number, all of that, I have concern that all of that stays secure, and I really hope they're monitoring those systems. And that's a good point. I mean, I haven't talked to many in the hospitality sector. I went to my first fruit company in Yakima 2 weeks ago, and that was very interesting. I learned all kinds of things about apples, and they have automated systems that do the grading. They don't have people that pick the apples anymore. They have cameras and they automatically are selected. Anyway, that was a roundabout answer, so, I have concerns, but I haven't worked directly with that. But when I did my MBA, I went to EHL in Lausanne, Switzerland with our other MBA students. It was a phenomenal experience. And they were specifically a hospitality program.
So we're mentioning about DRC.
Mhm.
Trading.
Yeah.
Taiwan, for example. So what are they doing? Putting some malware on computer systems, or especially those that are from infrastructure that you recognize, taking off?
Well, there are some indicators of compromise, but not like traditional malware, right? So they're getting into a system and gaining access and just basically keeping a low profile, so they're not picked up. But yes, there are, you know, there are things you can look for, you know, obviously, look for, administrative accounts being created, but a lot of times that will be triggered as well. But, you know, just, you know, monitor, ideally you would have a SIM, a security event incident manager, SIM or SIEM, whoever. Anyway, some call it either, but so then you could collate information from multiple sources and you might be able to more easily identify some nefarious activity. But you know, again, they're trying to stay under the radar. And they're playing the long game. It seems to always do that. And I threw Taiwan out there as just an example. I mean, it could be, I don't know what it is. Maybe, you know, there's a conflict somewhere else, or we put sanctions on them and they retaliate. I don't know. But there is definite concern that they are trying to affect our infrastructure. So we want to be able to turn the water on, have clean water, drinking water, flush the toilet, have it go somewhere. Turn on the light switch, have that come on, all of those things. This is a big crowd. This is exciting. I'm glad to see we're gonna have a bunch more folks, hitting the job market soon. The industry needs it.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, or if you have any last little tidbits for us there.
No, I think that's all I have. I'll be out at the table if anyone has any specific questions. I will say, just in general, there aren't always going to be $150,000 starting jobs, and you may have to start somewhere, in another technology space to get some baseline knowledge, you know, whether it's, working systems or networking or help desk or whatever. But take those opportunities to, work on your people skills. Getting a chance to work with people is just as important as the technical knowledge you're learning here, so, yeah.
So, you see Dan Brown out at the table, he's got a lot of information about CySER, or how do you say it?
CISA,
CySER? And,
yeah, too many
say
acronyms.
hello to him and look
Yeah.
at some opportunities that they may have. They also have stickers,
Yeah, lots of stickers
real cool stickers.
and a few pins.
Stuff I get those. Some pins, yeah. All right, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you for your patience.